Welcome to The Author Show, produced by Kitsap Publishing and aired on Bremerton Kitsap Access Television. The program focuses on published authors and the book publishing industry, which continues to grow and has changed drastically within the last decade. Authors who appear on this show are sharing their experience in writing and publishing. In this episode, we will be interviewing Michael Pickard and asking him questions about his book and his experience. Michael Pickard is a senior pastor of North Point Church, a Presbyterian congregation in Paulsville, Washington, where he and his wife, Joy, live. He has a Bachelor of Arts degree in Biblical Literature from Simpson University and a Master's degree of Divinity from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminar. Over 40 years, he has focused on helping others understand the Bible. As a pastor, his passion has been leading local congregations to love God by loving one another and serving their communities. Welcome, Michael Pickard.
Glad to be here, Ingemar. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's start. Today we will be speaking about Michael's new book entitled Rediscover the Bible or Discover It for the First Time. The book will be released in December this year, and it will be available in bookstores and libraries. The book is already available, though, today as an early release edition from Kitsap Publishing directly. Mike has been working with his own team to refine the book. We'd like to also acknowledge his team, Beth Cockrell as an editor and proofreader, Alani Bascuyu as marketing support, and his wife Joy, who patiently contributed with valuable feedback and support.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike, for being here today, and congratulations on the completion of your book.
Thank you, Ingemar.
Let's start with our long list of questions we have today. And we, first of all, you want to surprise the viewer with one little thing.
Oh, yes.
So what it is, I think there's a special day today.
It's
not
true.
Because you're here, but another one. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Today, Mike. I'm glad to be here on your birthday and spent that day. It's also a very hot day. I think it is the hottest day.
Hottest day of the year so far.
Yeah. So it's a very special day. And there's another thing to it, a very interesting coincidence. Last time we had the interview with Ron Lamont,
right,
who is a writer with Kitsap Publishing as well, and we had the show on May the 4th,
and
which is also his birthday.
Yes.
So it's that funny. We have two shows in a row, and the author's birthday is on that show. How remarkable!
Who can explain it?
Is that? I think something is behind that. Just that, but. Let's start with the actual book and with your career. The readers and the readership would like, the listeners would like to hear about your career and how did it come that you write a book, and maybe also introduce the book a little bit. We have the book here displayed. And so tell us a little bit about you and the book.
Well, to give you just a little background about myself, I've been an ordained minister for over 40 years, ordained in 1976. I started out early in life thinking I was going to be an illustrator. I had this idea I would draw cartoons for Disney. But during my first year at a Christian college, now Simpson University, where I took some classes on Bible and theology and had some experiences in local churches in San Francisco is where it was at the time. It just kind of opened up in my mind and heart a whole new idea, that another interest. And so in time that grew, and I realized that I wanted to pursue a possible ministry career. So that led to some church experiences that were supervised and guided to kind of check my suitability for ministry, and then theological education, first at Fuller Seminary in Pasadena, and then I did move back to New England to finish back there at Gordon Conwell Seminary in 1976. But that a change of course, which was totally unexpected for me when I first went to Simpson, obviously shaped the course of my life. And so all of these years from 1976 till now have been invested in pastoral ministry in local congregations. Mostly at two congregations that I've been in for long periods of time. And along the way, there was an opportunity. A scholarship was offered to work on a doctoral degree, which I was not able to take. At the time, it would have required a move to another state, and it just wasn't something that would have been good for my children and my family at the time. So I always sort of regretted not being able to do that. I love studying theology. And so here in these more recent years, I thought, what can I do as a personal challenge that will keep me refreshed and growing? I don't want to get on autopilot in my life or in my ministry. So I thought, well, I'll read through the Bible in a year, which I've done many times. There's Bibles formatted for that daily reading in 1 year all the way through the Bible. I thought, well, maybe this year I can write a little blog about what I'm reading and try to summarize and point out things for the person that has either never read the Bible before or who's tried but given up because it was too difficult or confusing to them, which is probably many people. And so I said, okay, this is a good idea. This was November and 2 years ago. And then I thought, when am I going to do that? I don't have any time to do that. So I decided not to do it. And then, and this rarely happens to me, about a week thereafter, in the middle of the night, I think it was 2 in the morning, I woke up wide awake and had this clear impression on my mind that, no, I need to do this.
It's a calling.
A calling, yes. And it's sort of God slapping me in the side of the head. It says, no, you're going to do this. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And I talked to my wife, Joy. I said, I feel that I should do this. And are you okay with this? Because it's going to mean more time every day for a whole year, days off, vacation days, everything, to do this. And like you said at the beginning, she was very supportive. It was, thank you, honey. It was great. And so I began on January 1, following the formatted Bible called the Daily Walk Bible that divides each day's reading into a number of chapters. Day 1 is Genesis 1 and 2. Day 2 is Genesis 3 to 5. And I would start just doing blogging on it. And as time went on, and as people began to, I posted on Facebook and on a blog site called Blogging Through the Bible. And as time went on and readers were interacting, I was finding this to be a real joyful experience. And it was personally renewing to me. And so usually what happened is 10 to midnight every night, there I was, clunking away. And on this side, you know, were my theology books and historical books, just in case I had questions about something. I wanted to be as much as possible accurate about what I was writing, and yet write it in such a way that it would be accessible and meaningful for the person that doesn't have a theological education but is interested in the Bible. And so I went. Rainy days and sunny days, days off, days when I was sick. On vacation, my wife and I went to Germany that year to spend a couple weeks with some friends. So I'm on the plane with this little computer in my lap and the Bible jammed between our seats. And every day in Germany over there at night, where my friends and my wife would enjoy conversation and the good things that Germans eat over there.
Oh, yeah.
And I would be upstairs clunking away. So about most of the way through that first year, one week at the Poulsbo Chamber of Commerce, you made a presentation from Kitsap Publishing about what publishers do, which was very interesting. And you had a table display of books you'd published, and afterwards I was hanging out there, and you came by, if you remember, and asked me the question that publishers ask everyone: have you ever thought about writing a book? And that started the conversation. I told you about the blog, and but with your encouragement, I considered taking this blog and turning it into a book. And
that was 2015.
Yes, and so that was the second year, the whole year, rewriting everything, making it the same length and adding some things that would be consistent throughout. And now, as you know, here it is.
Have it up.
No,
people need to see. It's a thick book, 740 pages.
Yeah.
And
well, it is a book that goes through the entire Bible, from Genesis to Revelation. Every chapter is at least summarized. And because this looks like a daunting book of 700 pages, what I did was I formatted this into daily readings of about 800 words, so that you could take it a little bit at a time. And in the course of 1 year, if you want to go by the calendar, from January to December 31st, or you can just start anywhere during the year and go from day 1 to day 300. We included leap year, 366.
Oh, right. February 29.
Yeah. So in 1 year, you are able to have a pretty good overview of the book. And so the purpose of what it is, it's this itself is not the text of the Bible. That you need the best use of this book is reading the text of the Bible and then using this as a comment on it. But this stands alone as well. You can read this without reading the text of the Bible, and if so, that takes about 10 to 12 minutes a day. So most people can do that, I thought. And it takes each day's reading from the Bible and summarizes what's there, makes observations and comments. I provide a little paragraph called Focus, which takes something that was said during the day or in this text and focuses on it a little bit more. And then it ends with a prayer that a person can use. So you can use it as a daily devotional reader, which many people do. And so the way you see it's formatted, it goes with a dark band of the day 1 or January 1 or whatever the date is, then the text, and then it goes to a different value for the focus, and then finally the prayer is the third. And I try as much as possible to let the Bible tell its own story. I don't have an agenda. I try not to have any one theological bias. Where there's differences of opinion about the text, I'll sometimes give different views. And I may say what I think I prefer, but I may not. Depends. By letting the Bible tell its own story, and I write the daily entries in the present tense, so it's like it's a narrative story that's going on. And
also it has current events in it. It's where like the times of today's are reflected in it. It's not something that you cannot relate to from.
Exactly. Because one of the reasons why the Bible is a difficult book for people to read is that it's an ancient book. You know, it's got 66 different books, over 40 authors written over a period of 1,500 years. And so it takes us to times and places that are very strange to us.
Yes.
And so the first step in understanding the Bible, and that's why most people need a guide, which is what I want to be, a lively guide through.
That's what you say it is,
the story. I try to help the reader understand what's going on, how that would have been understood by the original hearers to whom this was written.
Right. And I think this is the unique part, the unique thing about your book, because it tries to bring the reader to today, and it has the Bible content, the message of the Bible transferred to today in today's language.
Yes.
And I read part of it, of course,
Yes.
and I saw that in many instances where I can relate to. I say, oh, this is an example from this week, or from last week, or last year.
Well, I try to connect those dots.
Yeah.
Both, because what we discover when we do the little bit of background understanding and try to understand how they thought and how they viewed life, the ancient peoples and so forth, what we discover is that they were people just like us who are asking the exact same questions that we ask.
Right.
You read the book of Job, for example, a book about suffering. Who doesn't wonder about that?
Right.
Unjust suffering. Job feels he's been unjustly treated.
Yeah, and the funny thing is they use words that we today have different meanings for.
Yeah.
Right. So you translate what they actually meant in today's language, so they understand the words that the Bible says. That's my biggest problem when I read the Bible. I read a sentence, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
To me.
Thankfully, there's a lot of wonderful modern translations.
Yeah, there are.
The first time I read the Bible,
which was when?
I was like junior high school.
Yeah.
And I had a bedroom. It was in like a utility room in our home. We didn't have enough rooms for all the kids.
Yeah.
So I had, my bed was kind of stuck back there, and there was a little closet in the utility room. I took this old Bible, maybe in my grandmother's Bible. It's a King James, old Elizabethan English, and I took it into the closet, closed the door, turned the light on, and just began to read Genesis 1:1 on. And it didn't take me very long before I was totally confused. I was fascinated.
You were one of the three target audiences.
Yes,
now,
the confused.
Right. What are the three targets? It's the
curious,
who
have never read the Bible, but you may be aware that it's perhaps arguably the most influential book ever written. It's still, in the United States, we sell 75 million copies. You never see it on the New York Times bestseller list, but it's always by far the bestseller in the U.S.
75 million books a year.
Yes, and another 200 million outside the U.S.
This is just mind-boggling.
It is. Yeah. And so obviously this book has had a fantastic effect in shaping Western civilization and the way we think today, even if we're not aware of it. Yeah. So there are curious people that would like to know, what does the Bible have to say? And then there are those, as we say, that have tried reading it. Maybe they're going to church, they're hearing sermons, maybe they've been to a Bible study and they talk about parts and pieces, but they've tried to read the Bible on their own and given up because it was just too confusing. They got lost. So this, as I say, is a book that's hoped to guide them like a trail guide through all of the wonderful, crazy, unbelievable experiences of these people as they did the very things we do, trying to understand, where did everything come from? Is there a God? What does it mean to be human? What is my life about? They struggled with faith like we do. They had problems with relationships like we do. They did bad things like we do. And yet you find in this amazing story this God who reveals himself, who wants to be known, who creates this whole amazing universe of which we know hardly anything, it seems, just to surface. For the sake of human beings created in his image and likeness. And
so that's for the confused. And then the third group of people is the committed.
The committed ones, yeah.
And
people that have...
that's a great target audience, because the book has so much substance and so much content that can be
to deepen people's understanding.
Yeah, and that's really an advantage too.
So I think it could be, as I say, it could be used for a personal devotional reader, which millions of people do. It can be used for group study, if you get 4 or 5 people together and read through and talk about what we're learning, or for a personal reference, either for teaching or for just conversations with people, or for your own personal challenge, to understand this great book that shaped our world.
Well, Mike, this is such a big project, really. I feel like this is becoming or yeah, it is already becoming, you know, bigger in our community. Since it's already for pre-sale, we know how, you know,
Yeah.
people are interested in it. We have so many pre-orders already. I see there is a big interest in this topic, and especially in this book, how it's written, how it's presented. The book will be available, by the way, in all 4 formats. You can actually, the soft cover and the hardcover specifically, and also as an ebook. So people like to read on an ebook. We talked about an audiobook, which would be great,
Yeah.
but it's going to be a long audiobook, 30
Very long
hours or
audiobook.
50 hours audiobook. So we will talk about that. But
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea to have it nowadays. It's not a big issue. You can have audiobooks that are long, people commuting. Let's see if we find some little gold nuggets in here in terms of other questions that are completely unrelated to what we just talked about, but we'll give the audience a little insight of yourself. We talked about when you read the Bible first, and that's an interesting always topic. You know, how did you feel, and what was your opinion about it? I read the Bible, and I tell you the truth, I was completely confused.
Yeah, well,
I'm the middle. Yes. And let's talk about the publishing industry, and what is your experience when you published your book? And this goes now more just in the process to, like, if you want to give other authors some advice.
Yeah. Well, actually, as you know, I have encouraged several people I know. I was completely ignorant of the process, of course, and and you were of great help. Kitsap Publishing has a very clear process for moving
now
from
developed after many years.
Now developed, and to help an author along from just having an idea to get some original ideas on paper to having an edited book ready for publishing, and then what then? What do you, as the publisher, do, depending, of course, on how widespread you want your book to be?
Yeah,
and that you were very helpful in that
and
regard.
in your case, it was that you actually didn't seek a publisher.
No.
You didn't even think about publishing. Many authors are out there and they say, I want to publish my book. I want to find, you know, I have this great manuscript. I want to find a publisher.
Yeah.
And in our case, it was the other way around.
I
discovered you. I thought this is really a great project in the book industry, and I think it will help a lot of readers. So you came in totally, you know, unprepared, really, in terms of expectations even. Yeah, that's unusual though. Yeah, it is. Most authors come the other way. They try to find a publisher and then get discouraged and frustrated with the process. So it went pretty smooth.
Well, I think that's one of the great values of a local regional publisher. I guess micro publishing is the broader term for it.
We want to be the biggest publisher in the world,
the biggest micro.
The biggest micro, yeah.
But that gives local area authors an opportunity that otherwise they simply wouldn't have.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they could self-publish, and that's one thing a lot of people do. But to actually have a publisher's label on the book is pretty neat.
Yeah.
And plus all the services that you provide. And you made it very comfortable. I would have been at wit's end many times along the way. But what really helped was my decision to hire an editor and proofreader, Beth, who you mentioned at the beginning. She was amazing. And then later in the process, a social media director, Alani. So the team of the three of us, I think, has made me feel much more confident that we're on the right track. And
I think that's our really, philosophy. The team makes it work.
Right.
If you have the author and one publisher or one person who, works on it, you need a team. That's in any project. I can really say that. So that's a good comment, and I like that. Let's see, we have a lot of more questions. I know we have to skip some, but I do want to throw in some things that are completely off the record, not off the record, but off the of the topic we talked about so far. I mean, when you wrote the Bible, the commentary to the Bible, how did this change the view of the Bible today?
Well, writing it at the time of my life that I have, after 40 years of studying and teaching and preaching the Bible as a pastor, and having to relate it to people's lives, because one of the wonderful things about being a pastor is if you stay in a community long enough, you go through people's different phases of life and the problems of those different phases of life, and the joys and sorrows just of living, and bringing comfort or hope or celebration or perspective or some wisdom perhaps to situations that people in all different places along the journey of life are at, has forced me to see the Bible not just as an academic book and reading it as an academic exercise, but as a living Word of God to us today, and that it is applicable to lives. And so I had that experience of 40 years that I was able to draw from. And so though I had my books on the table all the time, most of all, it was frankly for me an opportunity to put down on paper the things I've been thinking about all these years. But I have 25 minutes on Sunday to talk about the Bible, and that's it. And so, and then for me too, it impressed me again at the great unity of the Bible in the face of its diversity, because the Bible is diverse in its genres of literature, in the times and places to which it writes, the perspective of the writers themselves, the different kinds of things it deals with as
the authors, 40 different authors.
Yeah. And so in my focusing on how do I help the reader see how all these different pieces of the puzzle fit together into one great story, the big story I call it, of 4 great themes: creation, where did everything come from? Why am I here? What's life about? Fall, if there is a creator God and he's good, why is life so messed up? Redemption, what if anything is God planning to do about it? And then new creation, where's it all going? What happens after I die? What's to become of us and this creation? And so those 4 great themes are everywhere in the Bible. And so connecting the dots between those and the various stories as it unfolds over the period of time of the writers was again just very renewing to me.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think we're going to go over time a little bit today, and that's fine. So we're going to I'm going to ask you 4 more questions. Okay. What was your biggest challenge with the book in general? So when you had the idea, I want to write that book, I decided to do it. What was the biggest hurdle at all you can think of?
Well, just the discipline of staying with it.
The discipline to stay
every
with
night. I had to kind of change my routine to not do the things I normally would do.
And in your case, it had to be a year.
Yes,
right? Because
every
that's
day.
what this is about.
Yes.
So other writers write their book in 2 weeks or 4, like Stephen King. I think he writes them pretty quickly in a month or something.
Yes.
So that's challenging in itself.
It is, and of course, most of the writing I've done is in writing sermons. Let's say is writing for speaking, which is different. Than writing for reading. So I've had to relearn some things about writing for reading, and that's where Beth has been wonderfully helpful.
Right. Yeah, Beth was in many hours
and
days in our office, and that's good. She was flexible and came in. And she really made us feel comfortable too, because and confident about the content. If you don't read the Bible, what other books do you read?
Right now I'm working my way through Charles Dickens, Nicholas Nickleby. I love Dickens. And I know he's been criticized for his long complex run-on sentences, but I love him. To me, he's just, I mean, I love his heart, his social concerns, the characters he writes. So that's for fun. I like books on science and Christianity. I've got many of them.
So you combine science and Christianity or religion, you can combine them.
Oh, yeah.
I think some people, like, they're either scientists and say everything else is not existent, and then some religious people are totally not into science. So in your case, you're...
No, science is only incompatible if you think of it, science, as needing to proceed under the assumption of what's called philosophic materialism, which is a way of saying that all that exists, all that, like Carl Sagan used to say, all that ever did exist, all that ever will exist is the material world. There is no spiritual realm beyond that. There is no God guiding the creation, but everything that exists is a product of random, unguided processes. Now, if you assume that, you can't prove it, but if you assume that philosophically, then science and Christianity, which says there is a God and a creator, will never be compatible. But science, really and truly, is simply the wonderful process of empirical observation of the material world, how it operates.
I love how you explain it. Describe it. Yes, I agree completely.
And it's for me like reading Charles Dickens. I read what he's written.
Right.
I don't assume that these words just fell together on a page all by themselves somehow out of the sky. I assume there's an author, and as I study the things he's written, I get to know the man. I get to know his heart. And the same thing in getting to know the physical world. Now, the Bible in Genesis is not a scientific book, and sometimes Christians have made the mistake to try to say that Genesis is talking about modern science as we think of it, but it's not. It's an ancient book, and I talk about in the book, in the context of it, what it is talking about. But what it says about who God is and who we are as people in his image, it makes the rise of science inevitable, because it says that the world was created by a rational God who wants to be known, who has given us, among all of the animals of the earth, this gift of his image by which our minds are awakened to his presence, and what we see out there is the world is real and coherent and rational, and we can take this earth in which we live and manipulate it and to learn about it and do things with it to benefit human flourishing on earth. That is what science is about. So I don't think they're incompatible.
Good. Oh, that's good to know that we haven't talked about that topic yet. I want to ask you one question that I think is very important. No, not that one. Who influenced you with let me find that question. I just had it. Oh, what other authors or friends, your friends, and what other authors are you friends with? And or other authors or other teachers or people in that area, in that subject field, and how have they helped you become a recognized author, and how do they help you right now? Also with the question, they are giving you reviews, and how are you feeling about?
Yeah. Well, I have consulted along the way with people I know or have had the opportunity to meet who are specialists in these areas. An Old Testament scholar, Dr. Ian Provan, who's from Canada, has been very helpful to me in understanding themes in the Old Testament, and then others whose books I profited from. In addition to that, same with, there's some New Testament guys who specialize in the New Testament who have read parts of what I've written and given me feedback about it, and that's been very encouraging to me. I have a very good friend who's a biologist, double PhD biologist, very smart, wonderful man, Dr. Jonathan Wells, And I've talked with him at length about matters of science and creation science in the Bible, so that as much as possible, what I'm thinking is reflecting of contemporary thought and good thinking about those things. And then recently, locally, I've met other writers. They're doing this like I am, writing books. And one of them that I've told you about is Richard Lemieux, who wrote Breakfast at Sally's, his story of losing his business, was a successful businessman, had a lot of good stuff, ended up on the streets, lost his family, everything, and his experience as a homeless man in Salvation Army, which is what Sally's is about. So I asked him, how did that come about, and how did that turn into a book? And it was a wonderful story, and he was very encouraging to me to do so. And I've corresponded with some other writers in this area in the Northwest, and have become aware of writers groups to connect with and that sort of thing. And so those people were very encouraging to me.
That's great. Yeah, I think you need that as an author in this phase to link up with not only your peers but also people who in that field. And I can see this happening a lot with your book. And this is really an encouraging project. So we're coming to the end of this recording. There are some other questions I'd like to ask, but the time is running out. Is one thing everybody would like to know is how can they get a hold of you or of the book, of course. I think there's an easy answer to it because there's a website. What was that again?
We've created a website called, it's www.rediscoverthebible.org. And at that website, you'll find a buy button that will take you to Kitsap Publishing, and you can purchase the Bible right now at a discount, by the way. And that will be, we're able to do that up through December, and when it's released to bookstores and online and different things. At that website also is an opportunity. There's another button there called Keep in the Loop, Keep Me in the Loop, because I want to use that website, rediscoverthebible.org, to interact with readers about questions they have or experiences they're having reading the book, misspelled words. And I'm also going to be blogging supplemental information. So
you can go from that website to your blog side at one point. I think it's not linked up
there'll be
yet,
a connection.
So
I want to keep writing about these things, supplemental material, Bible in the news kind of things.
Right. Yeah. So you want to keep it updated.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's really good.
And I do want to keep hearing from the readers, what they're experiencing. And
maybe we have something on the website too where they can respond and interact with that side as well.
Good.
So that's growing probably. Also, this interview will be on that website as well. So if you hear this on BCAT and want to see that again, this video, that's where you can go, www.rediscoverthebible.org. And with that, any other comments, any other things you want to get out there?
Well, just a personal statement. Pastors sort of occupy the ground between the world of scholarship and the local congregation, where people are just living life and dealing with life issues. And my joy as a pastor in preaching, teaching, and now writing this book has been to take the great scholarship going on, our better and growing understanding of the ancient world and its languages and its people, its practices that give us insights into why the Bible says what it does, and translate that into the lives of just folks who don't have the opportunity, as I have had, to study this professionally, and to do so in a way that encourages them. And that has been the joy for me as a pastor and the joy of writing this book.
To encourage people.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what this book does. And with that, Mike, I thank you very, very much for coming over.
My pleasure.
And it was a pleasure to have you here. and to learn about your exciting book project, which we are involved with.
Yes.
So we know about that. I also want to thank the crew at Bremerton Kitsap Access Television for their outstanding support. I hope you enjoyed our show today and that it encouraged you to learn more about the publishing. Maybe it inspired you to write and publish your own book soon. And with that, I wish all of you a good rest of the day, and I hope I will see you soon back here on our next show.